Frankly speaking, and this is a global observation, and I have to be humble here, but if I can take the liberty, we roughly see two types of leaders. One category is basically people that continue to kick the can. They optimize the quarterly results, but they are not fundamentally re-architecting their institution for various reasons.
Do they tend to be the bigger banks, or is that it's agnostic?
It's agnostic, I would say.
Joining me on the couch, I guess all the way from Holland, is Jouk Pleiter. Jouk is the founder and CEO of Backbase.
What we know is basically encouraging fintechs. They can make, it's an open sandbox, so they can actually also kind of make their own integration. So Backbase is not the bottleneck. The bank can decide to make connectors. The fintechs can make connectors, system integrators. It's a completely open ecosystem.
Okay.
So in that sense, I think in any business model, you never should be the bottleneck yourself, and you should never, I think it's also our pledge to the market, open innovation. Headless platform, open innovation in the UI, open developers, everybody can develop, everybody can extend the platform with its own capabilities, and everybody can make integrations.
But isn't it hard to manage? And what are you guys planning to do about that? Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to today's Couchonomics with Arjun. Joining me on the couch, I guess all the way from Holland, or maybe that's not where he's based, he'll correct me if I'm wrong, is Jouk Pleiter. Jouk is the founder and CEO of Backbase, who happened to be here for the Dubai FinTech Summit. So we said, why not we take this opportunity and sort of get him on the couch, which I think I have. So Jouk, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. It's good to be here.
Am I correct? Have you come in from Holland, or is it a different part of the world?
Yeah, I live with my family in Amsterdam. Yeah.
Excellent. Great city, great memories. So Jouk, I hope you're having a good time at the Dubai FinTech Summit. Have you attended it yet?
I've been there this morning. Yeah.
Okay,
the vibe is great. And also Dubai, the way it's developing over the years, it's very good to be here.
I actually feel like a veteran here. I've been here 13 to 14 years. There are not many people I meet who've been here for 14 years, but increasingly we see people living here longer. When I first came here for 3 years. So yeah, let's start with, I'm going to ask you a very simple question. What is Backbase?
Yeah. Backbase is a software company. It's around 2,500 people in total, but that's not so important. I think what we do, we are the fintech part that is focusing on traditional banks. And the Backbase platform is helping banks to modernize the way they interact with their customers. If you look at society, I think the comparison is quite simple. Platforms like Uber, you push a button, you get a car, it's instant. Same with food delivery. So I think platforms are taking over the world by storm. And what is unique about these platforms, they can orchestrate the customer journey. But these platforms are also multi-sided. So the consumer, the driver, all these different actors are operating on a single platform. So I think that's today's reality in many industries. If you then go to banks and how banks are architected over the last 40 years, it's basically a lot of legacy. And the biggest problem, I think, is twofold. One, everything is siloed. So there's a lot of valuable data and logic in these silos, but these silos are never architected to operate as one, right? The second thing is that kind of all that legacy technology has become very expensive. So banks are spending 80 to 90% of their IT budgets on keeping the light on and not on innovation. And I think that's where Backbase comes in. So we basically say the traditional banking operating model probably will not survive in the next 10 years because it's too clunky, it's too expensive, etc. So we basically need to go back to the drawing board and reimagine the whole operating model. And you basically go from channel-centric to customer-centric. You go from product-centric to customer-centric. And that's kind of what the Backbase platform does.
So I'm going to get more into the detail of that, but let me throw sort of a challenge. I guess I'm going to show my age here, right? It's not the first time, and I've been both on the consulting side and on the industry side for the last 20 years of my career, right? Yeah. It's not the first time that I've had someone walk up and say, legacy infrastructure is holding us back from innovation, right?
Correct.
It's not the first time, I guess you and I have heard, and I guess we're around the same age, right? That we want to be customer-centric and not be, I guess, product-centric or operation-centric or whatever the word here is, right? But the truth is legacy has persisted, right? Yeah. And it's persisted on the back of stability. It's persisted on the back of, the devil you know is better than the devil you don't, right?
Yeah.
So what's changing? I understand COVID and
Yeah.
digitization and, API technology.
No.
What's there's been a lot of resistance to change.
Yeah.
Why do you expect there to be such dramatic shift across the base now?
Well, I think in the last, there's a couple of things that basically people talk about customer-centric, but they never have been.
True.
So, right, it's just lip service.
But banks are not made to be customer-centric. They're made to be regulatory-centric.
You said it, right? So, and that is, of course, you need regulation. But so there's a lot of lip service about customer centricity, but basically people have been kicking the can. So what I would like to say is that a couple of things. One, external factors like the consumer expectations are now different. So I think millennials and younger generations will not accept a clunky banking application, right? I think challengers, either in the telco space, in the wallet space, in the e-commerce space, they are basically raising the bar and they will enter. So I think this is probably for the first time in the history that banks have a little, let's say more sense of urgency to basically discuss the elephant in the room. Because literally, I think it's an elephant in the room. And that brings me to the second point. I think so far, there has not been a good formula to actually modernize. Because you automatically think, wow, modernizing this bank, re-architecting around the customer, it feels like, how do you slice and dice the elephant? It feels like boiling an ocean, right? So I think what we now see is that there's a new formula with these platforms like Backbase and others, where you can do it progressively. So think about progressive modernization, where you make it digestible. And what I really like about what we can do today with all these platform technologies, the modernization is not IT-led, but it is journey-led. I really think that's important. So the starting point is not let's replace a system A to B, like a classic application modernization, but let's just analyze all the customer journeys. So let's look at kind of where we have friction in the onboarding, in the loan origination, in how people can increase their wealth with investing, right? And it's almost like doing an MRI of the bank. You identify where do you have the biggest friction point in the customer journey, and then you pick one of those journeys to start your transformation journey. And that is digestible. You can do that in, let's say, 6 months. The good thing here is that you're not modernizing that particular journey with yet another point solution, but you're doing it on a platform. So with that platform running in the background, the platform potentially can modernize any journey. So you can really digitize the bank wall to wall. But it's almost now like a play where you can say, we basically follow the customer pain, we follow the business impact, and then step by step, modernizing the house. It's almost like renovating a building, right? We go from the bathroom to the kitchen, etc.
I understand. And I think that analogy works. So let's take that analogy because I think payments was an area where we saw some of that modernization starting to happen about 8 to 10 years ago.
Yeah.
Right? Maybe longer, maybe a bit lesser. One very interesting case study, a use case which emerged out of some of the markets which introduced faster payments was that the bank's legacy system just could not deal with the velocity of transactions. So, we started seeing these carve-outs, right? Banks started carving out payment businesses separately, whether it was on the acceptance side or on the wallet side. And they had some connectivity into the core or the legacy, as you call it, right? Then about sort of 6 to 7 years ago, we started reading these theses around the parallel core or the dual core.
Yeah.
Which I think, if I may use another term for what you're actually suggesting. Now, fast forward, and here's a challenge, and tell me if it is a challenge or am I just going down the wrong route, right? Or barking up the wrong tree. So you have a legacy infrastructure, typically on-prem, right? With, lots and lots of bandages and, workarounds because, it's kind of built out itself in a complex manner over 40 years, right? You create a dual core or a parallel core, whichever of the two strategies you want to go down, which is platform, SaaS, cloud-based, built on this whole ideology of sprints and fast innovation, right? How do the two sync together? Because, you still need that dance to happen between the old and the new, right? And they're not dancing on the same floor. It's kind of like, I don't know, ballroom dancing and, here's someone with, I don't know, salsa, whatever else you want to call it.
You know what? Like, this is very common. A lot of people, if you hear the word modernization, they start to think about core modernization, side core, lean core, sidecar, all these concepts. If I may, I would maybe like to introduce a different paradigm.
Please.
Think in 3 layers. At the bottom, you have your system of record. Then you have a system of integration to connect to the system of records. And then you have the system of engagement. So the system of engagement, the top layer, I think that's where you kind of see the biggest impact. So what is very important is the engagement layer. That is where you truly interact with your customers. And that's also where you can maximize your differentiating value. It's basically the e-commerce of banking. Does that make sense? So what we basically see is the model in modernization. You can think in these different layers. And what we see is actually where people say, I need to allocate more money to the engagement layer because that's where I need to have the business logic to orchestrate the customer journey, to increase my share of wallet, increase my net promoter score, etc. And I would like to kind of hollow out the core. So it's not about replacing the core per se. It is basically you slim down the core to being the ledger, the processing engine. Then you connect to that core. But also you want to connect to fintechs because all these fintechs or lifestyle applications, you can basically now integrate with any industry. So in this picture, what you basically see at the bottom, you see your legacy systems. They become slimmer, but you can keep them, right? You also see fintechs. And now you have that integration platform where you can curate the different data and functionality from the system of record and from the fintech, and then you can compose that into a customer journey. And what's really interesting is that none of the end customers, either consumers or small business people, they will never see the core, right? They don't care about the core. They just care about like seamless journeys. You push a button, it's done. So in a way, what you see, just to wrap it up, like what we see, of course, you can have multiple cores. Like an engagement layer is decoupled from the core.
Okay.
So we have scenarios where we say whatever core you have, we can run 5 different cores. We can integrate 20 different fintechs. They will act as the system of record. Of course, we need to synchronize it with the system of engagement, but these systems can basically continue to operate and be the ledger
and
for
you provide, I guess, this layer in the middle.
Backbase does too. So Backbase is providing, the top layer, the system of engagement, that is a microservice-based engine room, channel agnostic. So your mobile app, your web app, your call center, your relationship manager
and you're able to
applications.
integrate any fintech solutions there.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So Backbase is providing is providing the integration layer, the engagement layer, but also how to connect that engagement layer to the backend, to the fintech, and to the core.
Okay. So let's now come to a bit of reality. So let's say I'm a buyer. I buy this concept. Theoretically, it makes perfect sense. Architecturally, obviously, we can draw all of this stuff, and I understand IT architecture because that's kind of my background. I'm not a technology guy to this essence, but I do understand it. What have been the challenges in terms of rolling this out over the last few years? Yeah. So what are the real challenges that you feel, and why do you feel these challenges exist? Because you also have a massive change management effort. Yeah. I think the organization that you're working with also has to think differently because they've trained themselves up on a particular legacy. Yeah. Right. What are the challenges that you see?
I think to your point, change management is probably the largest chunk. I think the technology less so. The technology is doable. If you look at change management, one of the golden rules, we basically see that the senior leadership team at the CXO level, you cannot simply delegate this to a bunch of people in the organization. It really needs to kind of have that top-down guidance, coaching, nudging, but also decision making. So that's really, and of course I'm kicking in an open door every program, but we still see a lot of people, okay, let's do a mobile app and we're good, right? I think it's fundamentally way more, but that's just kind of the leaders we've seen here in the region, like with Saudi National Bank, with Masraf Al Rayan, you really see a leadership team that is deeply involved on a database. They almost start to run it like a tech company. They match kind of their business goals, their business objectives in active dialogue with the architects and the engineering teams that are creating the vision. So I think that's very pragmatic, hands-on execution model, not a total board, but at least a delegated group of people driving it is super important.
Okay.
Integrating into legacy is not really a problem. It's just work. It's just muscle. The third one, I say people
How cooperative are the legacy providers?
It varies. Ultimately, they need to open up, right? Because
they have competing solutions too, right?
So sometimes there's a bit of struggle. People sometimes start to charge for these APIs, so they basically a bit of an API tax to go into the system of record. But I think the trend is undeniable. I think you want to decouple from the core. You want to decouple from these legacy systems, these front to back solutions and siloed solutions. People all realize like you cannot continue to operate in that lock-in, right? So platforms like Backbase basically are all about let's decouple from these legacy systems. Now you have optionality to keep them, to partially replace them, to complement them with other core technologies, more modern, but you have optionality. It's almost like a two-speed architecture, right? You've got a classic speed, it's low change frequency, and then in the engagement layer, that's really where you need to innovate and drive innovation. And I think that innovation in the engagement layer will go beyond just traditional banking. It will become more like lifestyle banking for small business owners, the one-stop shop to run their business. You really move ultimately into a platform business.
Okay.
But the final point on complexity and difficulty, people can make the scope a little bit too big.
Okay,
So
I was going to come to that, but please,
So I think, again, it goes back to do it progressively, do it modular, componentize it, and lock in success. I would say any program that is longer than 6 months, at least for a first deliverable, is problematic.
It's too long.
So make it small, but because this is a composable platform, and because it can potentially digitize any journey, wall to wall, you're not in a hurry. I think what is nice is now you have a paradigm that you can take small steps, but instead of duct taping it or instead of buying yet another point solution, you're now finally moving to a model where you actually have one platform.
2 questions then.
Yeah,
okay?
please.
And please, this is not an interrogation. It's more about educating the crowd. And actually, I'm being very selfish. I'm educating myself here too, right? We work with the same clients, by the way, right? As a matter of fact, I know places where you're currently implementing. I'm on the other side of the fence as a consultant.
I didn't know.
Right? Well, you might not be aware, but I'm aware of them. And you took a few names, but I won't name them on the show.
Yeah.
One dependency that I actually start seeing is that isn't the expectation now increasing on the business leaders to know even things that they didn't know? And what I mean by that is technology is moving at a pace that is, I guess, faster than it's ever been, and it's only becoming faster, right? Most business leaders, let's be honest, are dealing with the problems of today and tomorrow, right? They have quarterly targets, half-yearly targets, basically not beyond that. Annual targets is too far ahead. So aren't we now too dependent on them being able to say what they really want when they actually don't really know? And banks aren't very good at collecting feedback from customers, right? As I said, banks aren't built to collect feedback from customers in a continuous manner, right? Because they spend more time being, I would say, regulated. Some banks are different, the smaller ones, maybe the new ones, but the old ones isn't. The second question I have, I'll just throw both the questions because maybe they're interrelated, do I just move from a dependency to a legacy old build player to then becoming dependent on you? Right? As this orchestration layer, if I may use that term, which then is orchestrating everything for me, right? Legacy is a mindset issue as much as it's a technology issue. So how do I answer? So first question.
I'll do the first one.
And the second question is, am I just moving my dependency from to Backbase?
Yeah, clear. Maybe we can start with the business leader question, right? And I think that is, and frankly speaking, and this is a global observation, and I have to be humble here, but if I can take the liberty, we roughly see 2 types of leaders. One category is basically people that continue to kick the can. They optimize the quarterly results, but they are not fundamentally re-architecting their institution. For various reasons.
And
right?
do they tend to be the bigger banks, or is that it's agnostic?
It's agnostic, I would say. It's getting less so, but like certainly 10 years ago, kick the can. Now it becomes a little bit better, but still, even today, you see a group of people that continue to nurture the status quo. Then there's a second group, and that's the group we work with. They are definitely more progressive, ambitious leader. But you clearly see that in the leadership teams, you need to have a group of people that is committed to the journey. It has nothing to do with Backbase. Backbase is just a potential partner. So I think, and that's kind of the pleasure to work with these more progressive, ambitious leaders that taking a little bit of risk, because these transformation programs are not without risk. It could be a career limiting move, as you know, right? So I think therefore I would like to salute basically those type of leaders where they really say like, we are committed. When I leave this institution, it is future ready. And I really think it's existential, the threat we have, because we can continue to kick the can and, the quarterly results will be nice. The stock market will love it. But fundamentally over time, you're probably hollowing out your competitive.
Do you really believe in this part of the world we are in existential threat? We are making record profits. Our net margin in this region is 2.5 times any bank in Europe or the US.
No, totally. I mean, financially, there's no issue at all. Maybe even people make a lot of money, so why change, right?
Yeah.
So no, financially is not the issue. I really think it's about ultimately the agility and the leanness, so cost-income ratio, these type of metrics, the internal processes. Like ultimately, I think we're going to go to a world where the vast majority of what a customer wants to do is, of course, directly enabled in a mobile environment. It is directly straight to processing. And where needed, there's automatically the right customer assist, the human assist, right? So but if you look at today's mobile applications, they are quite simple. If I say, like, basically these first generation mobile apps, people think like, okay, great, but in a way it's just lipstick on a pig. You don't fundamentally solve the underlying problems. You don't, right? I've seen mobile apps, 5-star rating. Behind the scenes, people have to do data entry manually.
I'm sure that is
it's
true.
happening. It's happening at scale, right? If I'm a mass affluent customer, I get the same app like everyone else. So although we have all these marketing segments and customer segments, I'm just treating you like with a normal transactional
technology
app.
commoditizes all of that segmentation.
In a way, like how cool and how proud people are basically maybe about these mobile apps. They are clearly just first generation.
Okay.
We have to go to a world that is way more advanced. So one platform, you orchestrate every interaction, customers and employees, one reality, not different stovepipes. In that customer experience, everything has to happen in a couple of seconds, right? And ultimately, these mobile apps, they have to be composable. So you log in, it will recognize you. You're in that client segment, so your dashboard, all the different ingredients are based on segment A, B, C, D. If you have people in your household, you invite your driver, you can give him a card, you can invite your children. Like, so it is multi-user and multi-segment. I think the world is really moving in that direction.
Yeah, no, I agree with you.
None of these apps are there. But like, go back to your original question. Yeah, this type of vision requires, and we're fortunate, there's more and more CIO, CTO, head of retail, head of business banking that basically say, I want to be competitive. And I understand I also have to become a little bit more, I need to kind of include more technology company type of DNA in my operating model. And that's a personal learning curve for some of these people.
And I think some of them
they're glad to take it.
Some of them are doing a good job. I think some of them are transitioning. I think we can start to see that some of the senior leaders are changing. Their DNAs are different. Their backgrounds are different, right? I think organizations are making that risk. My second part of my question. So do I just move from one legacy to a legacy with Backbase in the future?
Yeah, well, there's always risk of legacy, right? So I think that's the biggest, for everybody here in this audience also, like the mobile app you're creating today probably is already legacy now. So that's kind of frustrating in a way, right? So our formula is to kind of make it as open as possible. So what we said, like, this thing to be viable has to be completely open, and it needs to embrace open source frameworks and open source developer standards.
Okay.
So you're not looking for a Backbase developer, you're looking for a Swift developer, an Android developer, Kotlin developer, like normal open mainstream technology. So open developer ecosystems is one. So people can bring their own developer tools, you can bring your own skills, etc. And then secondly, the platform is completely there. You can adopt like out-of-the-box stuff to go really fast. We call them model banks. So that's the speed element. And yes, if you adopt, Backbase also will maintain it, and you're dependent on Backbase. But in return, you don't have the maintenance headache, and you get ongoing innovation. So it's a trade-off. Where do you embrace it and we maintain it? And next to that, you can custom build. So you have the freedom to differentiate, and you can have one or more development teams in-house, no Backbase, and you can innovate on top of the platform. So that's headless.
So you do give an option that if you don't want to go legacy, you can choose to go legacy, but I guess this is incumbent on the bank that they need to have that mindset to constantly innovate, but your platform allows you to do that because it's not everything has to come back to Backbase, are you suggesting?
I think, like, let's look at what's the next best alternative.
Right.
Here, especially here in the Middle East, we see a lot of applications that are all in-house built or system integrator built.
A lot of system integrators have built their products on the back of these jobs that they've done.
And is that an open model? Probably not at all, right? And what is even more worrying, so you now have a lock-in on kind of custom development. So you're either dependent on the original developers that are not working, like the talent is a revolving door, or you are basically dependent on a system integrator that needs to kind of maintain and duct tape kind of the legacy digital mobile legacy applications. I think we already have legacy at the digital level. So in a way, I think this is so, let's say, this is a maturity level where we say the next step is at least an industrialized platform, right? Why would you do all that custom development and all that foundational plumbing? Why not? Just the same thing. Why would you have your own physical data center and not go to the cloud? I think, why are you going to create your own machine learning algorithms, the foundational models? No, you're going to innovate on top of it. So I think there's going to be a major change. And of course, I'm a little bit biased, but I really think there's going to be a change into platforms, white label platforms that are industrialized, where banks can innovate on top.
So let me sort of temper it to the other side, right? So I totally agree, right? You want to innovate, you want to be fast to market, you need to be on the cloud, you can't do everything custom built, you can't have everything in-house. But then you deter it to countries having data residency laws which are fairly restrictive.
Yeah.
You have cybersecurity threats, going through the roof, right? You've got other kinds of challenges in terms of, enterprise resilience of new systems. So how do you, where I call a new age platform, which is built with all these progressive mindsets, realigns itself to parts of the world which we are currently sitting in, which is highly progressive. Don't get me wrong. I think banking here is fairly progressive, right? Yeah. But the environment doesn't make it that easy, right? We can talk about the kingdom. We can, for example, how do you then take Backbase from country to country, market to market, and still use the words that I read in your papers: composable, platform, customer-centric, engagement, and all, because these things become harder and harder. So what's kind of the internal mindset within Backbase that allows you to kind of reinvent yourself, if I use that term? Yeah,
actually, it's maybe there are. It's totally doable. So just a few data
obviously points. It's doable. You're doing it.
Yeah, like so. There's we have more than 120 banks around the world, and this is pretty much on every continent. So this goes from LATAM to Middle East, Africa, Europe, US, etc. The code base of the Backbase platform is one architecture, one platform, one code base. So it's really a truly universal product. We have close to 1,000 people in product development working on that platform and maintaining it. Mm-hmm. That platform is basically a set of microservices, headless, that provides the type of capability actually every bank should do it themselves. So think about what is happening there. Like, you have all the legacy systems. The point is that they are fragmented, outdated, lock-in, siloed. But inside these legacy applications, you've got a lot of valuable business logic. Mm-hmm. So the business logic is held captive in these monoliths. Mm-hmm. So what we've done in the last 10 years is basically analyze all that business logic, either for consumer banking, commercial banking, and we basically dissected it and decomposed it out of the legacy and basically re-implement it in a modern, cloud-based, microservice-based architecture. Mm-hmm. So you go from monoliths with valuable capabilities into Lego. And the Lego is nicely organized in different layers. Okay. That is something you can deploy in any cloud. Mm-hmm. So you can also deploy it in any data center. So basically the only limitation is, do you have a local data center? Then your data center will reside there. Your data is good. The central banks are fine. Mm-hmm. So also in the kingdom, if you have the clouds with Oracle or with Google.
So you can do private cloud on your data centers.
Yeah. So these microservices are basically cloud agnostic, and you basically, as a bank, you just pick the cloud infrastructure that your central bank is allowing you.
And that allows you to. So you moved to 120 implementations or 120 blanks, might be multiple implementations in a bank. Sorry, you don't.
No, it's okay.
Right. That's a fairly good number, right? It's quite impressive. A lot of your new age competitors have a fairly similar sort of story, if I might sort of say so, in terms of how they position it. Fine, they all come from a slightly different angle. What has made you guys different to them, that has allowed you to scale multi-market, multi-continent at the pace at which you have?
I don't know which ones you have in mind, but
I'm not going to take names, but there's a half a dozen of them, who are.
I'll give you our view. I think we are still doing a lot of replacement of custom bespoke applications. Mm-hmm. So in a way, like the ones that are custom built, people now realize like, hey, this was my first or my second generation. I want to move into a platform approach, industrialized approach, but I still would like to have the flexibility to build on top. We basically call it accelerated build. Mm-hmm. So you could argue that bespoke software development is kind of a competitor for Backbase. And I think it has a very attractive ROI to move into a platform model. You don't have to do the plumbing, you do the innovation on top. The second one are the core banking providers. And to your point, or maybe I will signal your point, but like what you see in general is that they try to hold captive because they want to do the core, but they also want to do the channel layer, and they basically claim the front to back. And I think that's a very fundamental choice for every banking executive. Do you want to continue to operate in these closed models, or do you want to decouple from your core provider? I think the vast majority of the bank we speak in the industry, I think it's a very sensible idea to decompose and decouple. Many reasons. You can keep your legacy. You can basically extend the life cycle of your core. You don't need to replace it. I think a lot of people are mistaking the fact that they need to do core modernization versus you need to channel modernization.
I think people are getting it. I personally think people are getting it. At least a number of the clients that we're speaking to do understand this concept of decoupling away from the core, keeping the core the way it is for a while, doing the innovation around it, and then eventually if the core has to move, it moves, right? It doesn't all have to be done together, because then it's a 3-4 year project. The CEO who started the project is not there anymore, so on and so forth. I think my question was, everybody understands that. Even the legacy players actually understand that, and they're coming out with solutions too. There are new age players that are coming out too. So I'm kind of understanding, and maybe you don't want to answer this question, but,
I'm more than
but
happy.
what is the secret sauce here about Backbase? Right? What's the secret sauce which differentiates you against ABC? I do not want to take names for obvious reasons, because some of them have come on the show.
Okay, custom develop, we discussed core banking, decoupling. I think if you look at new age capabilities, maybe there's kind of another element which kind of is low coding. I think that can help to a degree, but I think low coding are generating the UI, and I think for consumer-facing applications, you want to see more, craftsmanship to not do that in a templated way. But I think those are roughly the choices we see in the market. So where does Backbase stand out? I think the key differentiators with Backbase is that I think we have a head start by doing this for the last 15 years. Where I do think there are point solutions out there. This company will do loan origination. This company will do onboarding and KYC. Like a lot of these guys basically take certain parts of the landscape, best of breed. Where with Backbase, I think we now arrive at the point where we have one common platform that can digitize the bank wall to wall. So you will massively simplify the number of IT platforms you need. You probably will take your core, maybe you need a CRM, yes or no, and you've got an engagement layer platform that will integrate. That's pretty much it. So a lot of the companies that I think you have in mind probably also are complementary to the Backbase platform. We call it the Backbase FinTech Marketplace, where you have more than 80 different fintechs, KYC, AML, credit score,
who connect
data. The platform is actually the platform that is curating all those capabilities. And that's kind of, I really think, another major opportunity here in the Middle East. There's so much fintech innovation, but it's standalone.
It is.
It is with MasterCard, it is with all these different players, right? And very powerful capabilities, APIs and data. Where is the orchestration and engagement platform that kind of brings it together? So think about, for instance, customer onboarding a new client, from KYC, AML checks, government onboarding, prospecting to customer, issuing the virtual card, push to wallet, shipping the physical card. That's a journey, right? You probably need 4 or 5 different fintechs or capabilities as part of that journey. A platform like Backbase comes in as the overarching orchestration layer, just to bring these things together.
Okay, so let's look at the future, right? So typically platforms, as you said, start to evolve. Well, you didn't say it. I'm going to say it. Is start to evolve into ecosystems. Right. Because what you've just painted as a picture is that there's a platform and on which you build this, right? You bring all these wow fintechs, which are point solutions pointing a specific problem to a specific problem, but then that starts taking share of the wallet of the overall, I guess, pot of what a bank is going to pay. And let's be honest, all these fintechs then also have designs to get deeper entrenched into the bank, because at the end of the day, they don't want to be at the mercy of the platform, because you could easily be replaced, right? You want to build the relationship with the I guess the entity at the back, which is the bank, right? And you will say, yes, the commercial relationship might be still with the bank and you're enabling that happening. But isn't there a natural tendency for then Backbase to say, something, we should start developing these capabilities which have repeat use against all the customers, which are arguably our products, right? why are we actually working with an array of players? We can still be playing with an array of players, but we want to have a Backbase play in it too, right?
Yeah.
How does that play out in your view going forward?
Yeah.
Because that's not going to be an easy orchestration, because then people won't trust you. Fintech might say, something, fine, we want to work with Backbase, but we know that Backbase is possibly going to use us for 6 months and then possibly replace us with somebody else or something or the other. How do you see that play out now?
Yeah. Okay.
I know I'm putting you in an awkward place,
but okay. On the positive side for the fintechs to integrate in a platform like Backbase is that a lot of banks actually, it takes 6 to 9 months to contract with a bank.
And not only that, sir, they trust you. You are enterprise, you are safe, you're secure. Agreed with you.
Yeah. So there's the real benefit to the bank, at least, is one contract, one invoice, and you basically literally start to operate like a marketplace, and you remove the procurement burden, etc. Attractive for the fintech. On the flip side, we had to architect the platform in such a way. I'll give you 2 examples. For instance, in open banking for account aggregation, it has to be a fungible architecture so we can swap out any provider.
Agreed.
And you need to give optionality. So we can say, in your region, you can pick, so we can basically route the traffic, right? Same with fraud detection. Like, it's an API call, and most of these things are basically API calls. And the fintechs are looking for volume, but they need to kind of make sure they've got their own competitiveness in pricing and in differentiation. So there's a level of fungibility. But like standalone, there's value, but pre-integrated as part of the journeys, as part of a distribution, the value is probably, 1 + 1 is 5. So I think those are the market dynamics.
And you're doing that now? Are you pre-integrating some of these solutions before you go?
For sure, yeah, big time. And you have to do it per region. So
obviously, it has to be.
Yeah, and what is maybe even more important, the integration layer is called Grand Central. Grand Central, the name says it, is basically providing the rails to bring it all together into a common domain model. So that's very nice, because then everybody upstream can consume it via the same APIs and the same domain model. It's a unified API. What we know is basically encouraging fintechs, it's an open sandbox, so they can actually also kind of make their own integration. So Backbase is not the bottleneck. The bank can decide to make connectors, the fintechs can make connectors, system integrators. It's a completely open ecosystem. Okay. So in that sense, I think in any business model, you never should be the bottleneck yourself, and you should never, I think that's also our pledge to the market, open innovation. Headless platform, open innovation in the UI, open developers, everybody can develop, everybody can extend the platform with its own capabilities, and everybody can make integration. So upstream of the platform, it's open, downstream. It's open, and also horizontally, you can combine it with anything. And that openness, ironically, is very attractive.
It is, but isn't it hard to manage?
Yeah, it is hard to manage.
I would imagine, right? Because you still have to define the rules of the game, right?
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, you are connecting into a big bank, which is highly regulated, and it's got sensitive data and so on and so forth. Let me switch on. Let me talk about it a little bit more. So we talk about AI and we talk about blockchain, and we talk about blockchain platforms now, which are emerging in terms of banking. I actually met a founder very recently who's building an entire bank based on distributed ledger and a blockchain platform, right? Nice. He's actually launching it in Eastern Europe because the regulation was more progressive. It allowed him to do so. Yeah. What are you as Backbase doing in terms of bringing, AI has existed, ML has existed for 20, 30 years, but I'm talking about, the stuff that we hear about now, right? Generative AI, LLMs, so on and so forth. What are you doing in terms of bringing these technologies into your platform and actually helping banks come on that journey? Because let's be honest, they'll be dependent on you guys to a large extent to bring to life a lot of that stuff, right? If I may say.
I think there's 2 things. It's kind of the prerequisites, putting them in place, and that's basically helping banks to kind of make sure they've got a unified data lake. So again, this Grand Central platform really helps banks to kind of get data from any source. You need to have these data pipelines, right? From inside the bank, from external bank into the data.
You don't have data, what users have AI, right?
Exactly. It's that simple, right? So you can either use the Backbase data lake that is part of the platform. You can take Snowflake, doesn't really matter. Make sure the data is in one location. Then secondly, you kind of see different areas where we can kind of refine algorithms to nudge people, and that could be in protecting them on fraud, to help them on how they spend, how they save, how they invest. And I think those are very specific learning models that our AI teams are creating today, and they are directly embedded in the model, in the platform. You can take our models, but you can also make your own models. So it's always like adopt or build. So in that sense, it's kind of the infrastructure component with the machine learning algorithms and then the ready trained models in a specific local context. I think this is all about making banking smarter. So that's one major area. The second area is maybe even more impactful. I really think like programming ultimately is a language and it's very predictable. If you now look at kind of these action-based models where you can basically orchestrate like different tasks and the AI will be executed in different tasks and there's hierarchy to it. I think ultimately I would not be surprised in 5 to 10 years from now that programming will be very different. You maybe don't need a low coding tool because you don't need to model it. You can just actually enable an agent or a set of agents to do that. And I think that's going to have a very profound impact on system integrators, software companies. Nobody can predict this, but very large industries will be just like law firms, just like call centers. I think also the domain of software engineering will be in some shape disrupted. So for Backbase and our clients, we really operate at the front of that with co-pilots and see how further we can actually create efficiency in how people can imagine a customer journey. But I think we're going to wake up one day that algorithms actually will compose these journeys. So it's maybe a little bit crazy, but
no, I'm not. So my question is very simple on this, right? So you're obviously, you're an open tool, right? As I said, you're an open platform, which basically means partnership and partnering is in your DNA, right? Because it has to be, otherwise you're not open, right? You can't have one and not the other,
correct.
Right? One way of de-risking the future in terms of these seismic shifts, which might come very quickly, right, is through, long-standing strategic partnerships. Where do you guys see yourself going? Do you see yourself partnering with some big players in the space of AI? And I mean really big strategic. Do you see partnering with yourselves with big players in the digital asset space because they're building stuff completely from scratch? Are you already in partnerships like these? And I mean strategic partnerships. I don't mean like, you and me get together and do one sale and then, we'll speak to each other 6 months later.
No, with like Backbase is completely cloud agnostic. So Google, AWS and Microsoft Azure, but we have a very large fundamental strategic partnership with Microsoft. And I think also then the data lake, the data aggregation, the pipelines and the machine learning algorithms are all kind of built on top of the Microsoft Azure data fabric and the Microsoft machine learning algorithms. It's not per se OpenAI. You can swap in any large language model. So I think these cloud providers, and next to that with Meta, with Llama, they will own that space. Nobody else will own that space. So you have to operate on top of that with focused, more vertical learning models around very specific use cases. And I think vertical SaaS companies like Backbase are in a unique position because you have the data, you have all the business logic, you have all the APIs. So you can now basically compose that either manually or with programmatic or with AI in the future. So the Microsoft partnership is big. Next to that, you see larger fintechs that, think of the big processors. They have huge amounts of data about anything in the payment behavior on any type of card. So naturally, there are natural partnerships there to be envisioned. Not in place today, but I can clearly see a trend where these things come together.
I agree with you. What about this whole crypto digital asset space, DeFi, coming into banking? Do you see that coming in very quickly? You still think that's 5 to 10 years away for you guys to be
I think we've been, I hear people talk about it already for the last 10 years at all these conferences, but inside the bank, I've never seen or rarely see it move beyond some innovation into mainstream. Conceptually,
do you not see that changing now, especially in our part
trade
of the
finance?
world?
In trade finance, we see it big time, and I think that is also a very natural use case.
And what are you guys planning to do about that?
We will stay agnostic of it.
Okay.
So
you'll integrate with whoever needs to be.
In a way, for Backbase, sometimes and maybe this is a bit too simplistic. You have so many.
Simple is good.
Yeah, well, we basically say it's another ledger, right? It's another system that will become the ledger. So we are core agnostic in the first place. So it can be a traditional core, it can be a modern lean core, it can be a Web3 ledger technology. Doesn't really matter. It can do the routing, etc. But ultimately, you need to apply access rights, entitlements, other kind of straight to processing, to the integration aspects of other parts in the bank. So I think that's the current view.
My last question, I'm going to put you on the spot, right? How do you see banking evolve, right, in this part of the world from the lens that you are applying today?
Yeah, I'm big on a few trends. I really think simplify, of course, the IT landscape. I think it's just not sustainable, either in speed of innovation or cost. So I think that's basically, I would encourage everybody just to take, like, what's the moment to basically take the bull by the horns and do the transformation.
And you think the time is now?
I think the time was yesterday, but no, really. And I'm, but
it was obviously yesterday.
But still, hey, in all fairness, the banks are still very profitable. So maybe it's tomorrow. Like who will say so?
But you are seeing a general shift. I'm seeing a general shift.
No, but look at Saudi, for instance. Look at TSC, the payment wallets. Like, these things go so fast.
Yeah.
And I think ultimately these things, initially you think it's not that bad, but like ultimately they start to accelerate and it's exponential, and then you're too late. So I think you also have to think about, like, if I start now, I'm at least make sure in the next 3-4 years that I'm in pole position to be and not be surprised and hold captive and it's too late. So that's one thing. The other thing I'm very big on, I really think all the applications are generation 1. They are one size fits all, so zero segmentation. And also the whole notion of a community or a household or a family, I really think they're going to be the next frontier of mobile applications that are multi-user, community, household-oriented. And also there will be...
This whole concept of beyond banking, I think, is catching up.
No, and it will kind of evolve into something like a multi-user, multi-segment, super app type of concept. And if you then look at the reality today, what we basically have are hard-coded mobile apps, single user, single segment, one size fits all, that's it. So in that maturity level, there is a second level.
What I'm going to do is, I'm going to invite you back in 2 years' time.
Let's
see. This is going to be recorded, right?
Yes.
We'll play it back.
Yeah.
We'll see how much of it actually came true.
Looking forward.
Right. Yeah. No, I want to thank you. Thank you for making time within your busy schedule. I think both of us are now required back at the Dubai FinTech Summit.
Yeah.
I think I'm on stage in about 45 minutes time, and I think you're on later today.
We need to run.
Right. Okay. Well, thank you for coming in, and we'll definitely stay in touch. I think there's some common sort of customers that we're working with. I'll let you know who they are after this show ends. So thanks a lot for coming in.
Thank you. I really enjoyed the questions. Thank you.
Appreciate that. Appreciate it. Ladies and gentlemen, that was Jouk Pleiter. He's the CEO and founder of Backbase. Hopefully this was not too technical a conversation for you guys, but I did want to get into the depth of, what I believe sort of holds the future of banking, which is basically the technology that they are built on, which is going through a lot of shift. So expect more of these types of, sessions in the future as we bring other players to talk about how they see the world changing. But with that, goodbye, and I'll see you guys next week.